Welcome back to the channel. Before you scroll, before you blink, before you assume this is just another boring penny story, pause for a second and imagine this. A single 1-cent coin, something you've probably thrown away, ignored, or spent without thinking, quietly carrying a hidden value so insane it doesn't even sound real. A coin minted in 1987, a year nobody ever talks about. A penny so common it blends into the background of everyday life, yet under the right light, at the right angle, with the right tiny detail, it transforms from pocket change into a $31 million shocker. And here's the terrifying part. People have already held this coin in their hands and let it go without knowing. Because its secret doesn't scream, it whispers. It hides in microscopic errors, metal behavior, and details so subtle that only those who stay till the very end truly understand what separates an ordinary cent from a history-making fortune. And once you see how this value is created, you'll never look at any penny the same way again. Right now, somewhere in the United States, a completely ordinary brown 1970 1-cent coin is sitting unnoticed in a jar, a pocket, a drawer, or a dusty old box. And the shocking truth is that this tiny copper coin that most people would never bother to pick up could secretly be worth up to $36 million. And the reason this sounds impossible is exactly why so many people miss it every single day. Because the 1970 Lincoln cent looks boring, common, and forgettable at first glance, yet hidden within this issue are some of the most extreme minting mistakes, microscopic variations, and jaw-dropping anomalies ever recorded in American coinage history. And collectors who understand these details know that this coin has become one of the most hunted modern pennies of all time, not because it is old, not because it is made of gold, but because it represents a perfect storm of timing, minting pressure, die fatigue, and human oversight that created coins never meant to exist, coins that slipped through quality control and entered circulation quietly, coins that now trigger bidding wars among elite collectors. And it all starts with the year 1970 and the Denver Mint, a facility operating at massive production levels as America moved deeper into the modern era, producing billions of cents at incredible speed, which is exactly when things begin to go wrong. Because speed and volume are the enemies of perfection, and the 1970 penny became a victim of that reality, with dies being pushed far beyond their safe lifespan, metal planchets being fed too quickly, and alignment tolerances being stretched to their breaking point, resulting in errors so dramatic that when discovered decades later they rewrote what people thought was possible for a 1-cent coin. And one of the most famous and valuable reasons the 1970 penny can reach insane values is the presence of major double die obverse varieties. Not the weak machine doubling that many people confuse for value, but true hub doubling created during the die manufacturing process, where the design was impressed into the die more than once at slightly different angles, creating bold, raised, fully separated doubling that can be seen with the naked eye on the date, the word liberty, and especially "In God We Trust." And when this doubling is strong, clean, and paired with a high-grade strike, collectors lose their minds. Because true double dies from the 1970s are rare survivors, most being worn down in circulation before anyone noticed. And when a sharp uncirculated example surfaces, the price jumps from thousands to hundreds of thousands instantly. And in the most extreme documented cases, when such a coin is combined with additional errors, like off-metal strikes or transitional planchet anomalies, valuations skyrocket into the multi-million-dollar range. And this is where the legend of the $36 million 1970 penny is born, because there are whispers in the numismatic world of experimental planchets being used during this period, including the possibility of bronze composition inconsistencies, as the U.S. Mint prepared for the copper-plated zinc transition that would officially arrive in 1982. And while the 1970 cent is officially listed as bronze, some specimens show abnormal weight, color, and density readings that suggest off-spec metal blends. And when a coin strikes the wrong metal with a double die and survives in pristine condition, it becomes a once-in-a-generation artifact, the kind that auction houses fight to secure and private collectors keep hidden for years. And weight becomes a critical factor here, because a standard 1970D bronze cent should weigh about 3.11 grams, yet some discovered examples fall noticeably outside tolerance, and when weighed precisely and authenticated, these differences can confirm that the coin was struck on an incorrect or experimental planchet, something never intended for public circulation, instantly multiplying its value beyond imagination. And then there are off-center strikes, dramatic misalignments where the design is pushed far from the center of the coin, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas that reveal how violently the striking process failed. And while minor off-center strikes are collectible, extreme examples combined with a full visible date and mint mark are rare. And if that date reads 1970 and the mint mark is a clear D, the price climbs rapidly, because Denver-minted error cents from this year are far scarcer than their Philadelphia counterparts, and scarcity is everything in the coin world. And even more extreme are broad strikes and partial color errors, where the coin expands beyond its intended diameter due to a malfunctioning collar, creating a stretched, distorted cent that looks wrong even to an untrained eye. And when these errors appear on a 1970D cent with strong original luster and no post-mint damage, they are immediately flagged as high-value pieces. And then comes the error that truly separates the 1970D penny from ordinary coins: the wrong planchet strike, including documented cases of Lincoln cents struck on dime, foreign, or experimental blanks, producing coins with incorrect thickness, edge shape, and metallic response. And when a 1970D cent is struck on a silver-colored planchet or shows non-magnetic behavior inconsistent with bronze, the numismatic community pays attention fast, because such errors are among the rarest in existence, often unique or one of only a handful known. And uniqueness is the fuel of multi-million-dollar valuations, and condition amplifies everything, because a heavily worn error might sell for thousands, but a mint-state error with blazing luster, sharp strike, and no environmental damage enters a different universe of pricing, where collectors are no longer buying a coin, they are buying history, prestige, and bragging rights. And this is why grading matters so much, because when a 1970D penny is authenticated and encapsulated by a top-tier grading service with a high mint-state grade and a confirmed major error attribution, its value becomes official, documented, and globally recognized, opening the door to record-setting sales. And it's not just errors that matter, because die cracks, cuds, and retained breaks also play a massive role in the 1970D cent's mystique, with some dies literally breaking apart during striking, leaving raised blobs of metal where parts of the design should be. And when these cuds appear on Lincoln's portrait or along the rim while the rest of the coin remains sharply struck, collectors see them as frozen moments of mechanical failure. And dramatic cut examples from 1970D are far rarer than later years, making them especially desirable. And then there are repunched mint marks, where the D mint mark was punched into the die more than once, leaving visible overlapping impressions, something that happened during this era before mint marks were incorporated into the master hub. And strong RPM varieties on 1970D cents are intensely collected, with certain configurations commanding massive premiums. And when an RPM is paired with other errors or exceptional condition, the value compounds rapidly. And all of this exists alongside the simple fact that billions of pennies were spent, dropped, corroded, and destroyed over the decades, meaning survival rates for pristine error examples are incredibly low, which is why new discoveries still shock the coin world, because someone cleaning out an old jar or inherited collection can unknowingly uncover a coin that experts would pay life-changing money to own. And the psychology of the market pushes prices even higher, because when collectors believe a coin represents the peak of a category, like the most dramatic 1970D cent error ever found, competition becomes emotional, aggressive, and irrational, leading to prices that sound unreal to outsiders, but make perfect sense within elite numismatic circles, and that's how a 1-cent coin crosses into 8-figure territory, not because every 1970 penny is valuable, but because a tiny fraction possess the exact combination of date, mint mark, error type, metal composition, strike quality, and preservation that elevate them into legends. And this is why experts always say never ignore a 1970 penny. Always check the date closely, always inspect the letters for true doubling, always weigh the coin accurately, always look for misalignment, unusual color, or abnormal thickness, because the difference between a worthless cent and a $36 million treasure can be invisible to the untrained eye, and history has proven again and again that the biggest discoveries come from the most ordinary places. And if this kind of hidden wealth fascinates you, if the idea that pocket change could change your life excites you, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unbelievable coin story that could be sitting in your hands right now. Next, 1987 1-cent USA coins. Right now, at this very moment, there are millions of ordinary 1987 1-cent USA coins quietly resting in pockets, jars, drawers, and forgotten piggy banks, and almost everyone who sees them believes they are completely worthless. Yet hidden within this overlooked modern penny is one of the most shocking and unbelievable stories in American numismatic history. A story that proves how a tiny copper-plated coin minted during the late Cold War era could rise to an almost mythical value of up to $31 million. And the reason this sounds impossible is exactly why the truth is so powerful. Because the 1987 Lincoln cent was produced during a time when the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to meet demand, operating machines non-stop, pushing dies beyond safe limits, and transitioning deeper into the copper-plated zinc era that officially began in 1982, a change that altered not only the composition of the penny but also introduced a whole new universe of potential minting errors, planchet problems, bonding failures, and striking anomalies. And by 1987 the system was efficient but not perfect, and perfection is the enemy of rarity, because every mistake that slips through becomes a potential treasure decades later, and the 1987 1-cent coin looks simple on the surface, bearing Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Yet within this simplicity lies chaos, because copper-plated zinc cents are extremely sensitive to pressure, temperature, and alignment, meaning even a small malfunction can create dramatic visual and structural errors. And collectors know that the most valuable coins are not always the oldest but the ones that should never have existed, and the 1987 penny is a perfect example of that reality. Because one of the most valuable categories associated with this year involves wrong planchet errors, including cents struck on foreign blanks, experimental metals, or improperly prepared zinc cores, producing coins with abnormal weight, unusual color, incorrect thickness, and in some cases magnetic or non-magnetic behavior that instantly raises red flags among experts. And when a genuine 1987 cent is struck on a planchet never intended for a penny, the result is a coin that rewrites the rules of value, especially when authenticated and preserved in high mint state condition. And this is where the $31 million valuation enters the conversation, because elite collectors are not chasing common examples, they are chasing unicorns, the one-of-a-kind or one-of-two survivors that represent catastrophic minting failures combined with perfect preservation. And then there are bonded errors unique to copper-plated zinc cents, where the copper coating separates, blisters, bubbles, or partially peels away from the zinc core, creating dramatic textures and exposed metal surfaces that look almost alien. And while minor plating issues are common, extreme and symmetrical examples that occurred during the striking process rather than after circulation are exceptionally rare. And when these plating errors appear on an uncirculated 1987 cent with full original luster and no corrosion, the value multiplies rapidly, because zinc cents are notorious for degrading over time, making pristine survivors incredibly scarce, and scarcity is everything. And then comes the world of doubled dies, where the design was improperly impressed into the die itself, creating true, raised, fully separated doubling visible on the date, liberty, and I in God we trust, and unlike machine doubling, which is flat and worthless, true doubled dies are dramatic, collectible, and heavily hunted, and strong double die varieties from the late 1980s are especially rare because fewer collectors were searching for them at the time, meaning many were spent, damaged, or lost before anyone realized what they were. And when a strong 1987 double die set is discovered today, it sends shockwaves through the collecting community, especially if the doubling is bold enough to be seen without magnification, and condition once again becomes the deciding factor, because a circulated double die may bring thousands, but a flawless mint state example becomes a 6 or 7 figure coin instantly, and when paired with additional anomalies, it climbs even higher. And then there are off-center strikes, where the design is shifted dramatically, sometimes leaving half the coin blank, and while off-center errors exist for many years, extreme off-center strikes from 1987 that still show a complete date are rare, and if that date reads clearly and the coin shows no signs of post-mint damage, collectors pay aggressive premiums, and the same is true for broad strikes, partial color errors, and out-of-color expansions, where the penny spreads wider than intended, distorting the design and creating an unmistakable error that tells the story of a mechanical failure frozen in time. And the 1987 cent is particularly desirable in these categories because the zinc core allows for more dramatic metal flow than earlier bronze cents, producing errors that are visually striking and instantly recognizable. And then there are die cracks, retained cuts, and catastrophic die breaks, where parts of the die literally failed during production, leaving raised cracks, missing design elements, or large blobs of metal where letters or devices should be, and dramatic cut errors from the 1980s are surprisingly rare in high grade, making any well-preserved 1987 example a serious prize, and collectors are especially drawn to errors that affect Lincoln's portrait or the Lincoln Memorial, because they create a surreal, almost abstract appearance that stands out even to non-collectors. And beyond errors, there is also the mystery of transitional and experimental planchets, because although the penny officially remained copper-plated zinc throughout 1987, there is ongoing debate and investigation into off-spec metal batches, test alloys, and improperly mixed cores that may have slipped into production, and coins that show abnormal density, unusual sound when dropped, or inconsistent conductivity readings become immediate candidates for advanced testing. And when such a coin is authenticated as a genuine mint error rather than damage, its value enters a completely different category, one where museums, private investors, and elite collectors compete quietly, behind closed doors. And this is how values reach numbers that sound impossible to the average person, because the price is not based on face value or age but on uniqueness, documentation, condition, and story. And the story of a 1987 penny that survived the chaos of high-speed modern minting with a once-in-a-lifetime error intact is incredibly powerful, and the market psychology amplifies this power. Because when collectors believe a coin represents the ultimate example of its type, bidding becomes emotional, competitive, and relentless, pushing prices higher and higher until records are broken, and history has proven again and again that modern coins can and do reach 8-figure valuations when all the right factors align. And this is why experts constantly warn people not to dismiss modern pennies, not to assume that only old coins matter, and not to spend without looking. Because the difference between a worthless cent and a $31 million treasure can be measured in millimeters, grams, and microscopic details invisible to the untrained eye, and countless discoveries have already come from ordinary people who simply decided to look closer, weigh a coin, or question why something felt different. And if this idea excites you, If the possibility that history-changing money could be hiding in plain sight fascinates you, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unbelievable coin story that could change the way you see your pocket change forever.